Welcome to the School of Love, the place where miracles are normal. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the School of Love, the place where we learn practical tools based on scientific research and our own experiences towards improving ourselves, living life to its fullest, and contributing to the best of our abilities to the world around us. I am Dr. Maria Grajdian, and I am a professor of media studies and anthropology at Hiroshima University. In my free time, I am doing my best to guide you in building up a life of contentment, joy, and fulfillment while applying lessons learned in school to overcome the difficulties, challenges, and insecurities of the real world. In this video, I talk about the theoretical foundations of classical, traditional, so-called toxic masculinity, and then I explain alternative models of masculinity based on popular characters in blockbuster franchises, Western and Japanese. Current debates on the shifting dynamics of gender roles, promoted by mainstream media and challenged by the quotidian reality of late modernity, bring into foreground the necessity of seriously addressing the validity of traditionally transmitted values and patterns, of thinking, of perceiving, and of processing the world, as well as the human being. This video tackles the problematic of enlightened masculinity as being actively derived from the intensely discussed toxic masculinity and highlights in a three-step process its origins, characteristics, and its challenges. Starting from in-depth analysis of classic masculinity as a place of unlimited control and demonstration of power, the current video draws on detailed explanation of proposals of alternative views on masculinity as represented in hugely popular media franchises such as Star Wars and Harry Potter in the West, as well as Rurouni Kenshin in Japan. Moving closer towards the emerging paradigm of empowered femininity, the syntactic construction enlightened masculinity turns into a valid model to be observed more poignantly and subsequently to be emulated on a large social scale. And now, first things first, that is, two disclaimers. The first disclaimer serves to strongly emphasize the fact that this YouTube channel, The School of Love, is not part of my educational and research activities at Hiroshima University. It is nonetheless part of my privilege, joy, and sense of duty to propagate and implement knowledge, information, as well as motivation and inspiration outside the limited framework of academic endeavors. Together, we can build up a better tomorrow for as many of us as possible. The second disclaimer relates to the fact that I am a trained musician and musicologist, not a psychologist, therapist, or counselor. The ideas I am sharing in my videos reflect my deep-going preoccupation with life, my own life and other people's lives, and express the results of my experiences, my research, and for better or for worse, my failures, as well as my recovery from those failures, recovery which is continuously ongoing. The ideas expressed in the videos on this channel named The School of Love cannot and may not and must not replace the consultation with specialists in whichever areas of your life you might have questions or you might struggle with. If you are new to the channel at this moment, I would like to ask you to please consider subscribing, sharing, liking, commenting. Thank you very, very much. This helps us not only with that mysterious algorithm which seems to dominate the galaxy of YouTube, but also with contributing to the expansion of the community of humans doing their best to impact positively the world and those around them by discovering their authentic selves and living life wholeheartedly. Thanks again. And now back to today's topic, which is the concept of enlightened masculinity and how it is reflected in the three blockbuster Star Wars, Harry Potter and Rurouni Kenshin. It has been widely observed that current debates on the shifting dynamics of gender roles promoted by mainstream media and challenged by the quotidian reality of late modernity bring into foreground the necessity to seriously address the validity of traditionally transmitted values and patterns of thinking, of perceiving, and of processing the world as well as the human being, as repeatedly argued The concept of toxic masculinity is a highly problematic one, focusing more on the negative dimensions of what a man is in opposition to the complex dynamics of what the identity of man has been historically constructed and acknowledged. Distancing itself from prevalent discourses on the negativity of classic models of masculinity, this video tackles the issue of enlightened masculinity as being actively derived from the intensely discussed toxic masculinity. Precisely as classic femininity is based on outdated models of what might be labeled toxic femininity, after several waves of feminism, the discussion ought to quest for alternative paradigms of empowered femininity, rather than endlessly circling around the premises of the past, which famously cannot be undone. In a three-step process, this video deals with the origins, characteristics, and challenges of masculinity in late modernity, starting from in-depth analysis of classic masculinity as a place of unlimited control and demonstration of power. In the first step, the definition of toxic masculinity and its 9 levels or masks are revealed, so that a powerful light is thrown on the huge pressure men face in everyday life, as well as on the fixed forms of identity they are supposed to adhere to. In the second step, practical challenges to toxic masculinity displayed in mainstream media, such as the hugely popular franchises of Star Wars, Harry Potter, and Rurouni Kenshin, are observed. Apart from being representatives of a specific zeitgeist dominating the Western world since mid-1970s, in case of Star Wars, and reflecting the powerful paradigm shift which occurred during the 1990s as feminism became more than a guerrilla war carried out by intellectual women at universities, what Harry Potter stands for, or emerging in an era of profound insecurity and soul-searching taking place in Japan, the only non-Western nation to have attained and swiftly surpassed the Western standards of progress in civilization, the lost decade of the 1990s when Rurouni Kenshin was released, the 3 franchises taken as concrete examples disclose alternative models of masculinity, astonishingly similar in their suggestions, backed by the painful awareness that the classic structures of traditional masculinity promoted by mass media have failed to offer valid answers to prevalent challenges and questions. These challenges and questions are not new. They are as old as the consciousness of male and female. What is new, though, is the historical context, a context which does not allow anymore for half-hearted solutions and pushes for honest discussions, both in the public sphere and in the intimacy of individual interrogations. So there will be 2 dimensions. The world is moving fast towards a fundamental redefinition of gender roles, which challenges the former binary heterosexual matrix and attempts to find a greater diversity in perceiving human beings and their alleged roles in life. One's own identity is becoming increasingly related to one's own readiness to take over the responsibility for one's own actions, thoughts, and emotions, which determine the individual outcome of one's existential pursuit for happiness and fulfillment. The lack of this readiness results, more often than not, in a pervasive feeling of unworthiness, which is blamed on social constructions of gender. As to be shown later on, the historical foundation of these constructions is not only being challenged, but real-life practical examples have abounded for decades, visible in powerful phenomena of mainstream media, and they are accessible to everyone in opposition to intellectual treatises tackling the same issues. In his groundbreaking book, The Masks of Masculinity from 2017, Lewis Howes outlines 9 major characteristics, or masks as he calls them, which define classic masculinity. As to be shown in the forthcoming explanation, these masks are educated during a long, arduous process of inscribing norms and social behaviors not inborn, and are responsible for the greatest part of the challenges men are facing nowadays. The Stoic mask is revealed as the entry level of traditional masculinity. It refers to the fact that every man must be invincible and tough, so that emotions are carefully managed and organized. That is, are cautiously suppressed from a young age. Tears and any other sign of weakness are carefully hidden, and no crying is indulged. No pain may be shown. No feeling is supposed to be expressed. There is a wall, an increasingly high wall, built up between the man and the world around him, a wall which protects him and enables him to pretend that he does not feel the things he does. He does feel, in fact. Weakness is an invitation to scrutiny, judgment, and rejection, both from the others and, more importantly, from himself. The Stoic mask is closely followed by the athlete mask, which means that one of the clearest ways a man can distinguish himself among peers is on the field or on the court. He must present himself like a modern-day gladiator, whose weapon is not death but domination. Through sports, a man proves himself, and the equation that a good athlete is a good man is eternally valid. Concretely speaking, this means lots of hours spent in the gym to get in shape or on playfields to maintain that Adonis-like body. Even more strongly, it means fighting without a sigh or tear through injuries and pain, and never allow the fear to lose in front of other men, get the best of one's abilities. However, if for some reason a man isn't good at sports himself, he is supposed to compensate for that by loving sports and knowing everything he can about them. The third level of classic masculinity is the material mask, which imposes that there is no clearer sign of a man's worth than the amount of money in his bank account. The immediate effect of this incredible social pressure is that not only do men work fabulously hard and sometimes do questionable things in the name of this hard work to make as much money as possible, but they also show off in the most diverse ways how much money they make so that other people know it. This, his cars, his watches, his houses, or as well as his social media feeds, become a representation of who a man is, as a man's net worth becomes his self-worth. Directly linked to the previous mask is the sexual mask, which asserts that a man is defined by his sexual conquests. His value is determined not only by his bank account, but also by the number of women he has slept with. Of course, the more gorgeous the woman, the more the worth of the man increases. However, he does not settle down in romantic relationships, which are socially perceived as being the solution for lesser men, for the quitters and beta males. A real man loves women and then leaves them, but in the course of their encounter, he is legendarily good in bed, so that they are left fully satisfied. Possibly, it is this mask which mercilessly objectifies women and treats them as trophies for men in their relentless pursuit for recognition and validation that enrages feminists the most. The fifth level of defining a man in terms of classic masculinity is the so-called aggressive mask. According to this, it is in the nature of men to be aggressive, to be violent and tough, and to never back down, to never give up, to never apologize even when they are dead wrong. When they see something they want, they take it. The more unavailable it is, the more they want it, and the more they fight for it. By their very essence, men hate, and they have enemies. More importantly, they have a temper. Naturally, they break things and they get into fights, even if that happens for the very simple reason to protect or to assert their dignity. Men are the hunters, not the gatherers who are the women. A man who thinks otherwise is not a man and is responsible for the weakening of the world. One of the most distressing reproach alpha males have against the non-alpha males. Somewhat of a derivation of the previous mask, the invincible mask is the one which forbids man to feel fear. By his very nature, a man takes risks, be it in the form of betting his life savings in a company, be it cliff diving in spite of dangers and costs, be it smoking and drinking in incredible quantities. Furthermore, according to this mask, a man does not have time to think about consequences, but instead he is very busy doing things, living life, winning and finding new avenues to prove his strength and abilities. It is the other people, namely women, children, elderly, the betas, who have problems and sit and talk about them. Real men, the alphas of the tribe, the top of the social ladder, have everything under control. They never complain and never seek help. They are masters of their own lives, and they are and will always be perfectly fine. The know it all mask is the seventh mask, under which the identity of a man is constructed. This states that a man is not only physically dominant, but intellectually dominant as well and emotionally absolutely in control. If there is anything another human being does not know or understand, a real man is more than happy to explain it to him or her, along with all the other subjects he is an expert in. He leads an entirely functional life, went to a top school, watches the news, and he knows all the answers by default. He certainly does not need anyone's help, opinion, or advice. He knows it all. He holds the world in the palm of his hand. And of course, a man has a sense of humor and a wit that can repel even the most withering critique or the most nagging doubt. This is the Joker mask. Talk about his problem is forbidden in this code of honor, and he counters everything with cynicism, sarcasm, and a sense of superiority, which serve as highly sophisticated intellectual weapons that a man uses to defend himself against every attempt to soften him or connect with him. If you want a man to let you in, expect a knock-knock joke, not an open door. At the end of the day, any attempt to penetrate beyond the self-erected walls of masculinity a man has been building along the years of his life will hit at some point against impenetrable jokes and funny tales of self-sufficiency, thus avoiding an intrusion into their inner world. Eventually, it all amounts to the ninth mask, the alpha mask. At the most basic level, men believe that there are only two types of male beings: alphas and betas, winners and losers. No real man can stand to be the latter, not even temporarily. So a man must dominate the others, one up any potential or actual adversary and win everything. A man may not ever differ. As a man, he must be in control, and he is not under any circumstances allowed to do anything or even think anything. A beta or a woman would do. The alpha male situates himself at the top of the food chain. He is there exclusively to fulfill his three major functions: to provide, to protect, and to procreate, and he never questions his position in the world, regardless of how lonely or isolated he might feel at times when those emotions of doubt arise. They are swiftly pushed down in a reflex-like movement to avoid inner accountability for the misdeeds their highly self-centered existence and vision of life might create around them. Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, Himura Kenshin, the three main male characters of the highly successful franchises of Star Wars, Harry Potter and Rurouni Kenshin, might be regarded as symbols of a new enlightened masculinity, challenging old models of the relationship between men and the world around them. In spite of belonging to very different plot backgrounds stretching diverse universes, Star Wars is a science fiction oeuvre, Harry Potter takes place in present-day England, Rurouni Kenshin is temporarily located in 1878, the early Meiji period, which lasted between 1868 and 1912 at the dawn of Japan's modernization. These three characters share 11 major characteristics, based on the fundamental masks of classic masculinity detailed previously, and developing them in the course of their life stories into revolutionary approaches to their own identity as men. To start with the first element, they all come from unprivileged social strata, without having known their original parents, and are raised by foster parents, either friendly and warm or unpleasant and abusive, or by fellow slaves. Very early on, They learn the importance of independence and of relying on themselves while searching for support in times of need. By finding solace in themselves, Luke, Harry, and Kenshin are able to offer to those around them the authentic warmth of a generous heart without expecting anything in return. The second common feature is that, at the beginning of the story, a major sacrifice, voluntary or not, marks their lives. The killing of Luke's uncle Owen and Aunt Beru by Imperial stormtroopers, the killing of Harry's parents by Voldemort, the killing of the young fellow slaves Akane, Kasumi, and Sakura, who had taken care of the 7-year-old Shinta, later Kenshin, by bandits. The grief of that original loss is both a catalyst of change and a strong motivation to grow up and to learn the skills necessary to seek revenge. And their initiation trips are equally about choosing the nature of their motivation and fulfilling the destination of their journeys. Related to this, their development is powerfully modeled by a unique role model who takes over the task of training them. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Yoda, Dumbledore and Sirius, Hiko Seijuro XIII. However, at some point in the course of their evolution, those very masters and their teachings turn into the greatest challenge the main characters have to overcome, so that they become the functional, responsible, self-reliant adults they are supposed to be. In a direct consequence of the existence of overwhelmingly powerful role models, during their early evolution as exceptional individuals, Luke, Harry, and Kenshin find a few male friends who serve as supporters and discussion partners and who play a fundamental role in the main character's ability to reach his ultimate potential. While these friends are more often than not themselves outcasts of some sort with quite shady backgrounds and personalities, they help highlight the various sides of the structure of the main character and thus essentially contribute to his own development. Han Solo, for instance, is anything but a positive figure with its constant selfish bragging. Ron Weasley, plagued by his insecurities and doubts, is not a symbol of coolness either. Sagara Sonosuke stands out negatively with his tantrums and tempers, but they are loyal and they care for their friends, even when they do not understand their struggles. The fifth common element is the fact that there is only one female main character in the lives of these heroes. She serves as an energetic counteract to the male-dominated plot and narrative environment. She brings in warmth and stability commonly associated with femininity on the one hand, and the goal-orientedness and clarity of intergender relationships on the other hand. Leia Organa, Ginny Weasley, Kamiya Kaoru, though different in terms of their personalities. Leia Organa is cool and self-possessed and able to lead a whole rebellion in the name of justice and freedom. Ginny Weasley is originally submissive and shy, but develops throughout the novel series into a calm, courageous young lady. Kaoru is self-confident and assertive and knows how to make a difference in the lives of those around her. Deliver a counterpoint balance to these female characters deliver a counterpointing balance to their numerous male counterparts and thus deeply impact the evolution of the main male character. In opposition to this, the arch enemies of these main male characters, Darth Vader, Voldemort, Shishio Makoto, prove eventually to be their negative alter ego, that part of themselves which needs most urgently to be replaced by positive, strong, kind elements, thoughts, and emotions. This is an inevitable segment of the journey towards their fulfilled coming of age as human beings of integrity and authentic love. Derived from such a necessity to face one's abyss of evil in order to emerge as a kind, warm human being, stays the fact that none of them kills his arch enemy by himself. In the logic of the plot, this detail protects them from turning into self-made murderers, even in the name of a noble cause. There are always additional elements which contribute to the annihilation of the negative characters, in themselves highly controversial personalities with a troubled past, who deserve eventually the compassion of audiences, an important element which challenges in a significant way old-fashioned visions of good and evil as black and white appearances. It is important to mention as an eighth feature shared by Luke, Harry, and Kenshin that their development is motivated by curiosity and by the selfless desire to help those in need, and if possible, to repent for former mistakes and murders. It is this selflessness which eventually saves each of them. Their ambition is driven by a profound sense of justice, and even though there are moments of doubt and self questioning, the temptation of power for the sake of one's own benefits never really enters the picture. A more technical dimension, the 10th common element, is the instrument with which they fight: lightsabers, magic wands, and samurai swords. They are all manual tools, all of them phallic symbols of masculine power, which require confidence in one's own physical strength, lengthy training, humbling awareness of one's own limitations, as well as direct confrontation with a potentially far more powerful adversary. Last but not least, because they have never known a family of their own, both Luke, Harry, and Kenshin intensively, painfully long for belonging and acceptance. Their need to protect those they love becomes ultimately their weakest spot, mercilessly exploited by their enemies to orchestrate their downfall. Paradoxically, though, it is precisely this soft spot, their innate longing for love and togetherness, that makes them human amidst their exceptionality. After overcoming distress and loneliness, the immense responsibility of rescuing the world and terminating the evil without becoming murderers themselves, due to this soft spot of innate kindness and authentic warmth, they are able to come back to the community of regular humans and to grasp this unique chance of integrating among others. Starting from major features of traditionally transmitted models of masculinity, these characters challenge and redefine them in the light of powerful, other-oriented features, with courage and compassion at the core of their identity. And this would be for today, meaning a first explanation of toxic masculinity and how this toxic masculinity is being challenged by hugely popular characters of mass media blockbusters. In another video, The Art of Loving, so enlightened masculinity, I explain the real life challenges resulting from this clash between classic masculinity and alternative models delivered by mass media. And well, I hope you'll have a look at it and draw the necessary lessons if you choose to. Thank you for joining me today, and I'm looking forward to welcoming you back here very soon again. Love and peace to you all.